to f you up.
Big Worm ain't gonna do a goddamn thing, man. You need some young meat. Mr. Parker ain't in there right, man. Mr. Parker finer than him. Damn, I knocked the dust off that pussy.
What if the biggest comedy of the 90s almost never happened because its star bombed his audition so badly he was sent home? What if Ice Cube was ready to pay Chris Tucker $12 million for a sequel, and Tucker turned it down? What if 3 beloved cast members died, while Hollywood executives refused to make the final film? The real story of Friday is darker, more dramatic, and more complicated than anyone realized. And Ice Cube kept these secrets hidden for nearly 3 decades, until now. Friday, the 1995 cult classic that launched a franchise and defined a generation, wasn't just a simple story about 2 friends hanging out in South Central LA. Behind the laughter and iconic one-liners lies a complex history of struggles, surprises, and revelations. From casting disasters that almost changed everything, to on-set conflicts with real gang members, to the shocking truth about why Chris Tucker never returned, the real story of Friday is far more dramatic than the movie itself. Background. To understand Friday, it's essential to understand what Ice Cube was fighting against. By the early 1990s, Hollywood had established a very specific formula for movies set in black neighborhoods. Films like Boys and the Hood, which Ice Cube himself starred in, Menace to Society, and Colors all portrayed life in the hood through one dominant lens: violence, tragedy, and despair. While these films were powerful and important, they told only part of the story. Ice Cube lived in South Central Los Angeles. He grew up in these neighborhoods, walked these streets,
Hurry up. We ain't got no milk.
Use water. It won't hurt.
and knew these people. What frustrated him most was that Hollywood's portrayal was incomplete. Yes, there was struggle. Yes, there was danger. But there was also laughter, community, friendship, and joy. There were ordinary days where people just hung out on their porches, talked trash, observed their neighbors, and found humor in the mundane absurdities of daily life. This imbalance in representation wasn't just inaccurate, it was damaging. It reduced complex communities to single-dimensional stereotypes. Ice Cube wanted to correct that narrative to show that life in the hood contained multitudes. The Vision, a hood classic. Friday was only the third screenplay Ice Cube had ever written in his life. The previous two scripts he'd worked on never made it into development, remaining shelved and forgotten. This means Friday represented his first real chance to prove himself as a screenwriter, adding enormous pressure to an already risky project. He was stepping outside his established identity as a hardcore rapper to write comedy, with no track record to support him. To ensure authenticity, he and co-writer DJ Pooh based the story on their own lives. According to Ice Cube, the majority of Friday is autobiographical, based on actual events that occurred in his neighborhood. The entire premise of the movie, Craig getting fired on his day off for allegedly stealing boxes, came from a real incident involving Ice Cube's cousin, who worked for United Parcel Service and experienced this exact injustice.
Stop hitting it so hard.
The character Smokey, played by Chris Tucker, was based on DJ Pooh's real stint as a drug dealer in the neighborhood. This personal connection gave the characters an authenticity that went beyond typical stoner comedy stereotypes. Ice Cube and DJ Pooh created Friday specifically to counteract how their world was being portrayed. "We had fun in the hood. We used to trip off the neighborhood," Cube explained. Comedy and joy were just as real as the struggles. His stated goal was to create a hood classic, a film that audiences could watch over and over and over again. He wasn't trying to make a one-time hit. He was deliberately crafting something with lasting cultural impact. A film you return to because it feels like spending time with old friends. The casting saga, Finding Smokey. The search for the right Smokey nearly derailed the entire production. This role was crucial. Smokey needed to be funny, vulnerable, energetic, and real all at once. Get the casting wrong, and the entire dynamic between Craig and Smokey would collapse. Originally, co-writer DJ Pooh was slated to play Smokey himself. After all, the character was based on his own experiences. However, New Line Cinema requested that someone with more acting experience take the role. This studio interference could have created resentment, but Pooh graciously accepted the small role of Red instead, the character whose bike gets stolen by Debo. Before Chris Tucker landed the role, both Chris Rock and Tommy Davidson were seriously considered. Either choice would have created an entirely different dynamic and altered the film's legacy. Ice Cube and DJ Pooh immediately decided on Chris Tucker after discovering him performing on Def Comedy Jam. They saw something special in his manic energy and knew he could bring Smokey to life. But Chris Tucker's first audition was a disaster. According to casting director Kim Harden, Tucker didn't know comedians could improvise, so he stuck rigidly to the script. He tried to play Smokey as a tough guy, completely missing the character's essence. He thought he needed to match Ice Cube's hardcore image, delivering his lines with an edge and aggression that were completely wrong for Smokey. He left the audition convinced he'd blown his chance, and he was right. At that moment,
Oh, God damn, man, look.
the role was slipping away. After bombing his audition, Tucker contacted Angela Means, who would play Felicia, seeking help with her acting coach. Instead, Means invited Tucker and Faison Love, Big Worm, to her home for an impromptu workshop over dinner. I put a big pot of spaghetti on the stove, and Chris and Faison came over, Means recalled. This wasn't a formal acting class. It was friends from the same Atlanta comedy circuit banding together to help Tucker secure a role they knew could change his life. They worked with Tucker throughout that dinner, helping him understand that Smokey didn't need to be cool or tough. Smokey needed to be weird, vulnerable, perpetually scrambling, and comfortable-looking ridiculous. They taught him about improvisation, about finding moments within the script rather than just reciting it. Love and Means essentially became Tucker's unofficial acting coaches, giving him the tools and confidence he needed to transform his approach. According to Angela Means, the transformation was complete by the end of that dinner. By the time that spaghetti was gone, Chris was Smokey. Tucker returned for his second audition completely different, loose, willing to look ridiculous and ready to improvise. Once he understood he could play freely, he immediately caught the attention of Ice Cube. The Chris Tucker who walked into that second audition was the Smokey audiences would come to love. The director's journey. Finding the right director was just as crucial as casting the right Smokey. Ice Cube needed someone who understood the material, who grew up in similar circumstances, and who could capture the authentic texture of the neighborhood. He handpicked F. Gary Gray. Friday marked F. Gary Gray's first feature film as a director. Previously, he'd been a prolific music video director who had worked with Ice Cube multiple times, including on the iconic video for It Was a Good Day. Ice Cube handpicked Gray specifically because they shared similar backgrounds. Gray had grown up in South Central, walked the same streets, and knew the rhythms and textures of daily life there. But Gray,
You know what I mean? It's not funny. He annoys me, so all I gotta do is think about how much he annoys me then.
later admitted that directing Ice Cube in a comedy scared the shit out of me. He doubted whether audiences would accept Ice Cube, known as the toughest man in America, in a comedic role so different from his hardcore public persona. Gray explained, Ice Cube was the toughest man in America, and when you take someone who delivers hard-hitting social issues in hardcore gangsta rap and who has a hardcore view on politics, you would never think comedy. This fear was legitimate. Ice Cube's entire brand was built on being uncompromising and politically fierce. Asking audiences to accept him in a comedy was asking them to completely recalibrate their perception of who he was. The production challenges. Once cameras started rolling, the Friday production faced challenges that would have destroyed lesser projects. The combination of impossible time constraints, a microscopic budget, and shooting in a real gang neighborhood created a pressure cooker environment. Friday was made for just $3.5 million, an incredibly modest budget even by 1995 standards. New Line Cinema's strategy was to minimize risk. With Ice Cube's name and such a tiny budget, they figured they could break even on home video alone. They weren't expecting a hit. This financial constraint meant the entire film had to be shot in just 20 days. The crew worked 14 to 16-hour days, racing against the clock to capture every scene before time and money ran out. This breakneck pace added enormous pressure. Actors had to nail their performances quickly. The filming location was Gray's own childhood neighborhood in South Central Los Angeles. The houses used for filming belonged to Gray's real-life friends.
From the past.
For what? Probably smoke bud, too.
How you doing, Brother Craig? How you doing?
And his former house was specifically used for the flashback scene where Debo punches Red off his bike. This personal connection gave Gray intimate knowledge of how the neighborhood looked, sounded, and felt. But filming in an authentic neighborhood came with real dangers. Because the film was shot in an actual Crip neighborhood, cast and crew were warned not to wear anything red. This gang-related safety concern affected the entire wardrobe. Smokey wears a blue shirt and hat, Debo wears a plaid blue shirt, and blue dominates the color palette. What viewers might assume was an artistic choice was actually a safety precaution to avoid provoking gang violence. This reality was captured on film. In the flashback scene, where Smokey accidentally smokes angel dust with Hector, two men can be seen sitting on a wall in the background. These weren't hired extras. They were real neighborhood residents who refused to cooperate with the production. Despite being offered payment to move or participate as walk-on actors, they insisted on staying in the shot, knowing the crew couldn't force them off their own property. On-set magic and hidden details. Beyond the major struggles, the set was filled with improvisation and clever Easter eggs that most viewers never notice. Many of John Witherspoon's most memorable lines as Craig's father were completely improvised. The legendary "Don't nobody go in the bathroom for about 35-45 minutes" scene and the bang, bang, bang sequence weren't in the original script. Witherspoon created them on the spot, drawing from his own observations of real life. The phrase that would become a global internet meme wasn't in the script either. According to Angela Means, Ice Cube improvised "Bye Felicia" based on the desperate energy she gave him as an actor in the moment. The line emerged organically from their on-set chemistry. 2 decades later, "Bye Felicia" would become one of the most widely used phrases in internet culture, a universal way to dismiss someone irrelevant. The film is also full of before they were famous cameos.
I won. Give me my money.
You what?
I lost.
The future Academy Award nominee Michael Clark Duncan made his uncredited film debut as a craps player in the background of a scene. At the time, he was completely unknown, working as a bodyguard. Duncan would go on to star in The Green Mile, Armageddon, and numerous other major films. A 13-year-old Megan Good also made her feature film debut as Kid Number 2, one of the children at Big Worm's ice cream truck. Her 2 lines marked the beginning of a highly successful Hollywood career. Director F. Gary Gray even made a cameo appearance in his own film as an employee in the liquor store during the scene where Izal, Anthony Johnson, slips and falls. And in one of the film's most subtle jokes, when Ice Cube's character is in the kitchen bringing his father water, he drops an ice cube on the floor. After picking it up, Ice Cube breaks the 4th wall by looking directly at the camera, a quick, self-aware joke playing on his own name. The box office surprise. Friday opened at number 2 at the box office, grossing $6.5 million its opening weekend in just 865 theaters. The film ultimately earned $27.4 million domestically, more than 8 times its production budget. What New Line expected to be a small, safe investment became a massive cultural phenomenon.
Man, that's a little Crip. Let's go get his ass.
Critics praised the film, giving it a 77% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Audiences loved it even more, awarding it a 91% audience score. The film's success came from its authentic portrayal of everyday life, its quotable dialogue, and the undeniable chemistry between Ice Cube and Chris Tucker. The sequel complications. The success of Friday made sequels inevitable, but it also created the complication that would haunt the franchise for decades. Why did Chris Tucker never return? The question became one of Hollywood's most discussed mysteries. When planning next Friday, Ice Cube revealed that they were ready to pay Chris Tucker $10 to $12 million to reprise his role as Smokey. This was an enormous offer that would have made Tucker one of the highest-paid comedic actors of his generation. But Tucker turned it down. In December 2021, Ice Cube finally revealed why Tucker walked away. "We were ready to pay Chris Tucker $10 to $12 million to do next Friday, but he turned us down for religious reasons. He didn't want to cuss or smoke weed on camera anymore." Tucker, who had become a born-again Christian after Friday's release,
It's crazy. It was crazy.
Well, let's take a...
It was easier working on this one because his English was better.
felt convicted about promoting drug use, profanity, and the lifestyle Smokey represented. In a 2021 interview, Tucker confirmed the story. "Back then, I gotta tell you, one of the reasons why I didn't do the second one was because of the weed. Because I said, man, that movie became a phenomenon. I don't want everybody smoking weed." Tucker's concern was genuine and rooted in his values. This wasn't about money or ego. It was about integrity and conviction. Of course, religion wasn't the only factor. Tucker was simultaneously offered major paychecks to star in the Rush Hour franchise with Jackie Chan. He would eventually earn $25 million for Rush Hour 3, making him briefly one of Hollywood's highest-paid actors. The financial opportunity to become a leading man in action, comedies that didn't conflict with his new values was too significant to pass up. The tragedy of last Friday. Even without Tucker, the franchise continued with Next Friday and Friday After Next. But for years, Ice Cube has been trying to make one final film, Last Friday, and the story behind its failure is heartbreaking. In 2021, Ice Cube revealed he had written a script for Last Friday that focused on Craig and Day-Day surviving in prison after their cannabis dispensary was stolen by a flash mob. They would then find themselves in a rehabilitation hospital.
Well, around here, between Normandy and Weston, we call this here a little twin.
Run by Smokey. This was Cube's clever way to bring Tucker's character back while respecting his religious concerns. The twist? It would be a bullshit rehab where he was taking everybody weed and smoking it in the little basement. Ice Cube envisioned Smokey as running a comically dysfunctional rehab center, providing humor while technically showing the character in a recovery context. But Warner Brothers, which owns the distribution rights to the Friday series, rejected Ice Cube's scripts. Studio executives told him, "Jail's not funny. It's too much time in jail. How can you make jail funny?" Ice Cube's response revealed his frustration. Then they come out with Orange is the New Black. Let's go to prison. All these movies about that, and I'm like, see, more Hollywood execs don't know what the fuck they talking about. But the delays in making Last Friday had truly devastating consequences. John Witherspoon, who played Craig's father, died in 2019 at age 77. Tommy "Tiny" Lister Jr., who played the iconic Debo, died in 2020 at age 62. Anthony A.J. Johnson, who played Ezel, died in 2021 at age 55. 3 crucial, irreplaceable cast members passed away while the studio delayed production. Ice Cube placed blame squarely on the studio. John Witherspoon passed away. Tommy "Tiny" Lister Jr. passed away. Anthony A.J. Johnson passed away. I'm like, man, we keep losing people, and y'all keep dicking around, not doing the movie the way it needed to be done. In 2019, he criticized New Line Cinema more directly. "You let our legends die." The pain in Ice Cube's statements is palpable. These weren't just actors to him. They were collaborators, friends, people who helped create something culturally significant. The studio's inability to commit meant these performers never got to complete the story they'd started together. Ice Cube's assessment of the studio's refusal revealed his deeper frustration. "You're holding the happiness of the culture hostage by not making this movie." For Cube, this wasn't just about a sequel. It was about delivering something the community wanted and deserved. As of June 2024, Ice Cube announced on Flavor Flav's show that Last Friday was back in development at Warner Brothers, stating they finally got some traction. Whether the film will actually be made and whether Chris Tucker will participate remains uncertain. Tucker has said he would definitely consider it, but he's also protective of Smokey's legacy, noting, "I don't want to mess it up." The enduring legacy and conclusion. Nearly 3 decades after its release, Friday remains a cultural touchstone. The film popularized phrases like "Bye Felicia," which became internet memes used millions of times. Athletes like San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Deebo Samuel earned their nicknames from the film's character. Director Quentin Tarantino counted Friday as one of his 20 favorite films from 1992 to 2009. Rapper Kendrick Lamar referenced Deebo in his 2024 diss track, "Not Like Us." Ice Cube himself acknowledged the universal connection. People love Friday because everyone experienced it. Everyone has lived 1,000 Fridays. These secrets reveal that Friday's creation is far more complex than the simple comedy on screen. From Ice Cube's personal mission, to Chris Tucker's near-miss audition, to the tragic deaths of beloved cast members while studios delayed the franchise's conclusion. Every element is layered with drama and struggle. Ice Cube set out to create a hood classic, and he succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. But that success came with complications, creative battles, the loss of his co-star to religious convictions, and the heartbreak of watching cast members pass away before the story could be properly concluded. Friday endures because it was authentic. It showed laughter, alongside struggle and ordinary humanity in a setting Hollywood had relegated to stereotypes. Ice Cube took a risk, and that risk paid off with a film that changed comedy and influenced countless creators. The secrets hidden for decades reveal that making magic requires struggle, and that sometimes the stories behind our favorite films are just as compelling as the films themselves.